Hello, everyone. This is JB back at you with the next reaction and discussion video of the Dragon Prince. This is Dragon Prince Season 2, Episode 5, Breaking the Seal. Okay, so this is again another spoiler warning. I will be discussing the episode at length, so please make sure you have watched the episode. Okay, so this starts at in the beginning starts with the meeting of the Pentarchy, and so Viren lied into that he was the regent of Catalyst when he arrives, and there were three other kings and queen. I think two kings and one queen there. And then they were waiting for the regent of Duran. But instead of the regent, it was Queen Anya herself, who is a child, I'm guessing around the age of 12. And so at first Viren is like, can we have an adult? And then Queen Anya kind of puts him in his place. It's like, well, I'm a child. What did she say? I'm a queen without an adult. And, or I'm, what is it? Yeah. I'm a queen, or I'm the crown without an adult, and you're adult without a crown, or something like that. Basically, telling Viren like you're still not. You might think you're okay. You might think you're all that because you're a regent, but you're still not a queen. So let's just go on and get started. And from that moment, and talk about her a little bit later. But I was like, yep, I like this queen. She reminds me of Toph. If Toph was a queen, that would be her. So he tries to convince the Pentarchy to join forces because he said that the elves are gathering along the borders. He's saying that there have been dragons flying in the sky, and that they should work together to kind of counter and be ready for the imminent attack. So the two kings and the other queen agree, but they're like, yeah, if we're unanimous, then we will go into battle. And then of course Queen Anya is like, no. And Viren kind of flips out at first, is like, see, this is why we need an adult. And then she's like, no, I'm not gonna do this, after you just giving me a 90-second explanation. Like, I'm gonna need a little bit more of that before I throw my people into battle. We need to be not as impulsive as the other kings and queens. And so Viren, he's like, oh okay, but the other kings and queens are like, yeah, that was kind of a good point. And then we go to the Column crew, and again, nothing really happened with them because this is more of a flashback episode. But essentially, Calum is trying to he's debating opening up the seal from the letter that Claudia had gave him the episode prior, and he's debating, and he's having a hard time, and he makes a good point. It's like, my father's dead. These are still words that he hasn't said to me, and so if I do read them, they would truly be his last words. And then of course Bait, is having a little bit of jealousy syndrome because Ezran has been spending all of his time with Zem, so Bait kind of hangs out with Column, and that's basically that storyline. Going back to the Pentarchy, Viren tries to sweet talk Anya, and she calls him out on his BS so quick, and she says this great line. She says, "Sweet words can be more dangerous than a hidden dagger." And I was like, dang. Like she really called him out and was like, yeah, I will not accept your BS. You're gonna have to try a little bit harder than that. And so then Viren was like, let me tell a story. And so we go to this flashback. And so now I'm going to focus on the flashback. And, it talks about the King Harrow's coronation, introduced to Sarai, who is his wife, the mother of both Calum and Ezran. There's references to the portrait of King Harrow and Viren. And Viren said like, yeah, he wanted me to stand next to him, and like we see that happening, and I thought that's cool. I always like when a show refers to something and then like actually shows the context. Like that context is always good. And then there's a discussion between King Harrow and Sarai in the bedroom, and he's just saying like, I don't know why I deserve this, and like Ezrin is privileged essentially. He's born into this, but like nothing, nothing that didn't happen because of his merit. It was just something he was born into. And he's wrestling with these questions. There is a lady justice joke thrown in there for the adults watching the show, so thanks. But then he goes on to he uses this blindfold analogy, and it's like if I'm blindfolded and I just blindfold myself and I put myself in anyone else's shoes, are things really fair? We shouldn't be characterized based on like what we look like or the color of our skin, and things should be equal. I really like this analogy. I would, we'll discuss it a little bit later, but I thought that was a good analogy there. And then, King Harrow saw himself as a servant of Katalis, and then the queens come from Durin, and they say like, our kingdom, or I guess queendom, is falling apart, and we need your help because we're running out of food. And so King Harrow immediately is like, yes, we will help you. Katalis will help you. But Viren disagrees with him. He's like, we don't really have the food to be sharing. Like, we barely can make it ourselves. And, King Harrow says a great line. It's like, well, if we can't help them, we will share in their suffering. But then later, sometime later, Viren, comes with a creative solution. It's like, I have a creative solution, aka dark magic. It's like, if we just get this heart from this rock creature, then I can perform a spell that will give us all abundant life. But of course, Sarai didn't like this idea. She's like, this seems too easy. We can't be going off killing random creatures just because we're trying to make ourselves better. Like that's not cool. And then there's a cool little like side thing. This was like 2 seconds. Because Queen Sarai and King Harrow are like kind of doing a sparring with each other, and Queen Sarai like gets King Harrow's weapon away from him. She knocks it out of his hand, and like 2 guards in the background, one like passes coin. It's like, oh yeah, she won that bet. I thought that was kind of funny. But despite her not liking the idea, she does ultimately supports and will support her husband, and so went on this journey. They go into I think it's just into Zadia. They're talking about taking down this this rock monster thing, and there's another joke in there where King Harrow's talking about the ballistas, and they're like, how is this supposed to take down this great monster? And he says, if our aim is true, we will find the right spot and get the job done. And immediately Amaya like signs to Sarai something with, I don't know ASL, but I am pretty sure she said that's what she said. I'm pretty sure that was a sexual joke there. Oh, that's what she said. So if any of you guys know ASL, please comment below what exactly Amaya said there. But I'm pretty sure that's what she said. And then they awake the monster, and he's about to attack, and that's the episode. So obviously this flashback, which all flashback episodes should be, some meatiness is a half, this is only half of it. It's a 2-episode kind of flashback thing. So we will get the second half of the flashback in episode 6. So here are some of my thoughts on this episode in particular. My first thought is I love Queen Anya. Again, she reminds me of Toph. She may be young, but she is definitely wise. My only criticism per se of that sequence is I know the writers are trying to make Queen Anya seem wise, and I'm all for children being wise, but almost the way they do it is by dumbing down the other kings and queen. They're like, oh well, if we all agree, then we'll do it. And she's like, what are you guys talking about? Can we actually think about this? So that would be my criticism. However, I do have a theory, and I need evidence from the next episode to really prove it. But I'm gonna mention it here, and then I will bring this theory back up in the discussion for the next video. But my theory is that all of the two queens and the two kings are afraid of Viren, or know that he's up to something kind of shady. And so the other kings and queen are almost we're gonna say that we would do it if we agree, but we know Queen Anya is gonna not stand for that, so we know she's not gonna agree, therefore we're not gonna agree, and that's why they say it that way. I was like, oh well, for all unanimous, and this is my maybe third or fourth viewing of this episode, and on this viewing, I saw them. They kind of look at Queen Anya's direction when all of them say that. They're like, "Oh, for all unanimous," and look at Queen Anya winking, almost not quite winking, but almost that kind of sentiment. So it could be possible that they, even though Viren's claims are valid, but they're like, we don't know. It seems odd, but so we're gonna let Queen Anya kind of handle this because she has more of the aggressive spirit. And so that is another theory that I have to why the other kings and queens so quickly was like, oh yeah, we would destroy people in the battle as long as we all agree on it. So I think that maybe solves the problem of maybe they aren't dumb, but they just wanted to refer to Queen Anya because they knew she would stand up for Viren. The next thing I want to say is Viren is still shady, but again, he's not just a villain. He kind of has some points here. It's clearly the Sun Fire Elves have been on the border, and dragons are flying over Katalis, and even to me, just knowing that information, that does sound like the creatures in Zadia are entering some type of end game. There's some type of plan here that people should at least be on alert, and so I agree with his, trying to we can't just sit here and wait for our child prince to come back to rule our nation. We need to go now. We need to do something now, because if we don't, we're all going to burn. And I think that's valid. He's still shady, but I think he's definitely valid in being concerned and being we need to do something. King Harrow's vision. I really liked his vision. I really liked his blindfold analogy. And I know some people, and even when I was watching this with someone, they're like, oh, well, I got political quickly. And that's a shame. That's a shame that, we have gotten to a place in our society when anything talking about equality, anything talking about something that already should just exist is now categorized as, oh, well, that's political. We're getting political. This is the kids show. We shouldn't be getting political. But it's no, it's not getting political. He's just saying something that's true. He's saying something that should exist. Equality should exist. We shouldn't judge people based on their skin or what, lifestyle or family they were born into. There should be an equality for all. That's not a political thing. That should just be how the world works. And the fact that King Harrow in this fantasy world is saying yeah, we need to do better at this. I don't think that's political. I just think that's how it should work. And so I'm glad he addressed it. And it wasn't just Americans need to. No, it was just it wasn't even like, oh, all the other kingdoms need to do what I do. But his conviction, his thought was like, if I'm going to be a king, I need to put myself in a servant's shoes first. I need to put myself in all of the other people in my kingdom's shoes. And I think there is value to that. I think there is something to be learned from that. And if this is a child's show, we should be teaching children that that is what we should be striving for. That servant leadership type approach. So I'm all for that. I'm sorry if some people, find that too overly political, but it's not political. It's just the way things should be. It's the way things ought to be. He's not calling out problems. He's not saying his kingdom has racism. He's just saying that if he's going to be a king, and he's going to be a just king, then he should think about, other people's perspective, the poor people's perspective, or the people who weren't born into a royal family. And I think that is completely valid. And, I'm glad that the show showed that side of him. And again, and this leads into my next point with the representation. And, I know some people are really excited about the two queens. But it's like, regardless of how you feel about politics today or how you feel about the LGBTQ community, it's like this show has those elements and it never gets in the way of the story. It's never like, all right, here is our interracial couple. All right, here is, our, what we believe. All right, here is our lesbian couple. Here is our hearing impaired person. Like, it never gets in the way of the story. Like, it enhances the story. And that, to me, that is the most important thing, that it doesn't get in the way of the story. It's part of the story. It's an element of the story. This is the world in which these things exist. And it was never like a stop or like these two queens, like no, it just happens. It's just a passing statement. They're two queens, they're leaning, their kingdom, and like that's what it is. And so, regardless of how you feel on those types of issues, and I definitely have my opinions of those types of issues, it's like that doesn't get in the way of the story. And I think, the writer should be commended for that, of not letting these things or political agendas get in the way of the story. It's just a part of the story, and I think that is perfectly fine. And my last point here, and I think we will see this more in the next episode, is we might see why King Harold got so angry at Viren in the beginning of the first season, to the point where people thought it was a little bit characteristic, where he's like, you are a servant, you will bow to me. And like, everyone's like, whoa, that seems out of King Harold's character. And we were a little bit confused. And a lot of, reviewers cited that specific instance where it's like, oh, that didn't seem like that was King Harold. And to me, it's like, you know what? I think there's going to be a flashback. I think they're going to give us context. Like, I was going to, I'm going to blindly put my trust in these writers and say they're going to give us context to why he got so angry. Because, they had that conversation. It was like, the reason why we're here is because of dark magic. Dark magic, puts us in a bad place. We shouldn't use dark magic. And then the fact that Viren came back at him trying to do this dark magic, and that's why he got upset. So I think in this flashback, or the events of the next episode, is going to explain perhaps why, King Harold got so upset. I mean, obviously you can intuit things, of like, obviously, Queen Sarai is not here anymore. So, probably she won't make it out of the next episode, or like those types of things. So I think we're going to see why he acted that way. I think we're about to see the context of that. So those are my thoughts on the episodes. Please let me know what you thought. How did you feel about Queen Anya? Did you like her? Did you think, that they dumbed down the other kings and queen to make her look smarter? Or do you agree with my theory that you actually think they were actually playing into that, because they weren't so short of Viren? What do you think about King Harold's feel about the blindfold and sort of his philosophy? Do you think that was over political? Do you think the writers were putting a political agenda there, or do you think that it was valid to the story? And then, the last question: what is your feelings on the representation of the show? Do you think that they've done a good job with that, or not a good job with that? Let me know in the comments. I'll be interested to read your thoughts. All right, that will be it for this video. I will see you on the next one. Have a good day.